you can see the real meaning of Jesus' warning to Laodicea about being lukewarm. So it's not about zeal, it's about geography. Welcome back to another video. I'm Samantha Corcoran of Geo-Logos, and in this video series, we're going to cover the book Misreading Scripture with Western Eyes by Richards and O'Brien. So this will really be more of a video supplement to the book. And in today's video, we'll cover the introduction. Now, I personally love the example that the authors bring up in the introduction about Laodicea. Now, remember, this was one of the 7 churches of Revelation. They got a warning from Jesus about being lukewarm. So now, I want you to virtually travel with me to Laodicea. Let's check it out on site and see what clues we can gather from geography that might help us understand lukewarm a little bit better. So welcome to Laodicea. This is a wonderful site to visit because they have a restored 2nd century Christian church. They have a reconstructed ancient theater. So there's a lot more to Laodicea. I'm about to make a video about it. But in the meantime, if you want to see my previous videos about our trip, check out the link above. The one thing I noticed in Laodicea is very engineering-like. Can you tell what it is? It's water pipes. Now, what really surprised me as an engineer is that this town, while very wealthy, they built it with no actual natural water sources nearby. There's nothing. So they have to pipe water in 3 to 5 miles away from the south from a cold water spring. And by the time that water traverses that distance, sediment collects, the water temperature normalizes with the ambient temperature, and you get tepid water. Let's take a look at the map and see where Laodicea lies, where the water came from, and 2 other cities that help us make sense of this lukewarm terminology. So here in the middle, you can see Laodicea, and it is not too far from a place called Hierapolis. Hierapolis is well known, even today, for its hot springs, and it kind of looks like a ski slope out on the side of a mountain. It's very white, beautiful. Tourists come from all over for the health benefits of this hot spring. And the other town is, down here, Colossae. Now, Colossae is mentioned in the New Testament, right? We have the book of Colossians. And what's really incredible is Colossae had cold water. Now, I love this quote on page 11 of the book. It says, "The point of this story is that where we stand influences how we read and ultimately apply the Bible." And you can totally see that from Laodicea. You can look out from Laodicea up to Hierapolis, and you can look over to Colossae. You can see them. So unlike nearby Colossae with the cold freshwater springs, or like Hierapolis with the hot springs, Laodicea stood in contrast because of their piped-in, tepid water. So now I think you get the point about Jesus' warning to Laodicea. He wanted them to be either hot like Hierapolis or cold like Colossae, because hot is good and cold is good. They're both good. They have utility. They're useful. But tepid water has no utility. It's not useful at all. It's gross. So it's not about zeal. It's about geography. You might be wondering, how did we get to this point? Like, if it's geography, the early Christians would have known that because they were there. But over time, how did this game of telephone change it to be cold equals lost? Well, I have some optical illusions that might help illustrate this. I want you to take a look at your screen. What does your brain see? Most of you will see a bright white triangle sitting right in the center, pointed upward. It probably even looks a little wider than the rest of the background, right? But here's the trick. There's no triangle. If you look closely, there's no lines connecting the corners. There are just 3 black circles with bites taken out of them. They look like Pac-Man. So what's happening is your brain doesn't have all of the information, so it's filling in the gaps. In psychology, this is called Amodal Completion. And if you think about all of the things we see throughout a day, our brains are very busy trying to translate what we're seeing. If our brain had to translate every pixel of light individually, we would be paralyzed by information. So your brain is actually a high-speed editor, and it says, hey, I've seen a pattern like this before, let me fill it in with what I already know. It fills in the gaps to save you time. Isn't that fascinating? All right, it's kind of like your phone's autocorrect, right? You know how you type in a word and most of the time it's correct, but then sometimes it'll change what was a correct word into something you didn't mean at all because it was assuming what you wanted. That's similar to how we read the Bible. When we read a passage that we don't have all of the information for, or it's incomplete, or we're not familiar with, say, geography, our brains will use cultural autofill to fill in the gaps to make it make sense. One more pop psychology item for you is this hilarious video. I've linked it above so you can go watch it. It's a classic whodunit. You'll be surprised at what happens in the video. And even though you can see the scene, your brain will miss some information. So inattentional blindness is how we could read a Bible story 100 times and still miss details. The authors give a great example of this inattentional blindness using the story of the prodigal son in Luke 15. Now, I'm guessing you've read that story multiple times, but did you notice the part about the famine? So go reread that story and pay attention this time for a famine. You might have missed it if you yourself have never experienced a famine. Now, don't feel bad if you missed it initially. Something that might help, and the authors recommend this, is to talk to people who are from a different culture than you. Read the Bible together with a third culture reader, as they say. A fantastic example of this is our friend Lois. Lois has a friend from Uganda named Millie, and they have collaborated together on different talks and papers, and now an upcoming book. I'll put the link in the description if you're interested in that. But Lois has been interviewing Millie about what it's like to read the Bible as a Ugandan and how village life there resembles much of the Old Testament. See if you can find someone at your local church or maybe a friend of a friend who's from a different culture originally, and sit down and read some of these Bible stories with them and hear their perspective. All right, so that's all I have for this video. Make sure you go read the introduction and come back next week where we'll go over chapter 1, Serving Two Masters.